Hey, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Two Lakers appear on the All-NBA teams. Is that a good thing or not? We'll tell you next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one right here, the one you're listening to or watching, is always going to be free. It's never going to be behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 24,000 subscribers are all hanging out, leaving questions on the mailbag link that Andy put up a couple days ago, which we'll be getting to a lot over the course of the next few weeks, certainly. So we appreciate everybody's input there. In the open, Andy, I noted that the Lakers have two guys that made the All-NBA team this year. I probably, it's like a tease. I probably could have just said who they were at the beginning. It's LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis makes the second team, LeBron James the third. So, I mean, ultimately, first and foremost, it's nice to see those guys get the recognition I think they deserved. I think both of them deserve to be on that team. You could argue that LeBron probably deserved a spot, or I could make that argument over Kawhi Leonard to go from 3 to 2. In terms of which team he was on. But overall, these are not the sorts of things that I get particularly worked up about. Both guys were there. There are a lot of good players in the NBA. It seems about right to me.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to add a little bit to what Brian had said about the mailbag. It's in the community section of the YouTube channel. So if you're looking to leave questions there, please do, because we are going to be using them a lot over the course of this week, certainly next week. We do check it all the time, been logging it. You can also hit us up on Twitter at Cam Brothers, or go to the audio, iTunes and whatnot, leave a 5-star review along with a question. You leave a 5-star review, I am promising you we will acknowledge your question in some way, shape, or form. As far as, AD second team, that's a no-brainer. I had done, whether for Spectrum Sportsnet, Brian and I appear regularly on their programming. They're the TV partner of the Lakers, or 710 ESPN, where Brian and I also regularly appear. I had done all NBA teams on both of those networks, and on both of them, I had Anthony Davis second team. I think it's very difficult not to put him there. As far as LeBron with the second team, when I did my all NBA teams, I had LeBron third, just like the actual voting shook out. And at the time, I actually had Kawhi second. The reason being, I thought when Kawhi played, A, he was quite good, and B, when he played more on both sides of the ball than LeBron did over the course of I think about he had to be at least 65 games that Kawhi played on.
I think he played 68. I think it was
okay. Whatever the amount was, I think you can make that argument that if you put as much weight on both sides of the ball and that sort of thing, you could make the argument for Kawhi ahead of LeBron. If you want to put a little bit more weight on overall production and just sort of the supernova that LeBron can sometimes be offensively, you could put LeBron ahead of Kawhi. I think you could make an argument that he would be ahead of Kevin Durant. Either way, I think LeBron should have been acknowledged on the All-NBA team, and he was. And in the end, that's what I think matters the most.
Yeah, these are not the kind of, there's a bunch of stuff about this that I think is interesting. It's like, the Clippers, the Suns, the Lakers, nobody lasted all that long in the postseason this year. And you can't look at it and say, well, it's because all the guys, Kevin Durant played 75 games, I think, this year. He was on that team. He was available, played very well, and he, deserves, somewhere in that 1 through 3 team, placement. And Kawhi Leonard was there. And, obviously he got hurt at the wrong time. Paul George had stretches where he got hurt at the wrong time.
Joel Embiid certainly would have made it had he been available and played enough games.
And that's what makes a lot of this so tricky. And why I asked at the beginning, in the open, is this good or not? And on the one, it's obviously a good thing. Like, Lakers play well, individual honors, they deserve it. It's a reminder of what LeBron is accomplishing. And I realize, like, people sometimes roll their eyes at this stuff, but the dude is nearly 40 years old. And again, you could make a very strong argument that he should have been on the NBA's all second team all NBA. I do not think that is a stretch by any means. And so, like, that's pretty remarkable. So yeah, it's worth a little celebration. These two guys who have a ton of pressure on them and all that other stuff performed and, showed out. Like, the Lakers still have 2 of, ostensibly the 15 best players in the NBA. That's good. I think you can probably guess where I'm going, though, wondering if it's a little bit bad, because, like, the Lakers got great seasons from both of these guys and didn't get out of the first round.
I mean, look, some of this has to do with your draw, and Denver is obviously, they got bounced in the second round by the Wolves, but it was a 7-game series, and the Wolves, they're down 0-1 as we record, but they certainly should not be counted out. And they, I think, have a really good chance of getting to the finals and winning the whole thing. I mean, the West is just really, really good. So the idea that the Lakers lost in the first round to the defending champions, I don't think is representative of them being a bad team. We've talked about that before. Sure. They are a good team. But there are plenty of people who feel like the Lakers had a lot of things happen better in the regular season, whether you're talking about decisions made by Darvin Ham, taking the regular season more seriously. Obviously, the injuries to Jared Vanderbilt and to Gabe Vincent and maybe the opening 20-ish games of the season, Rui Hachimura, like those things all mattered. Talked about this many times. The pacing of LeBron for the first 50 to 60 games also affects, where the Lakers, how they performed over the course of the season, which I will keep beating this drum, is going to start becoming very important for how they do in the playoffs. Like, there's always a tendency, I think, in terms of the way fans and media think, where, regular season is one thing, the playoffs is another thing, and never the twain shall meet. But the reality is, I think, in the Western Conference, your regular season is going to influence, if nothing else, a lot of how you are positioned to enter the playoffs. And a lot of the fortune that you may have, had the Lakers been able to get to the upper part of the bracket, maybe we're still talking about them, maybe not. But either way, they may not have been out in the first round.
Right. Or, and I am not here to advocate for, tanking a game to get to a different playoff opponent. But, like, if it had shaken out, the Lakers had a different matchup in the first round than Denver, it could have turned out differently. I mean, there's just a lot of moving parts here. And, 4-1 series, 2 buzzer beaters, 1 more competitive game, 1 that wasn't.
Yeah.
So the question that I'm asking, though, is, do you look at this, LeBron and AD, all NBA, and feel like that is an encouraging sign that the window is maybe open a little wider than, or a little longer? Or do you look at the result despite the health and think it actually might be closing faster? That's what I want to ask next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by LinkedIn. And when you're hiring for your small business, you want to have quality professionals available that are right for the role. You need to discover them. And that's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just another job board. They have a vast network of over 1 billion professionals, 1 billion with a B, which makes it the best place to hire, gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy, intuitive. They streamline it. It's so easy just when you have that many qualified candidates. And that's why 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. And LinkedIn understands when you're running a small business, you are wearing a lot of hats at once. You may not have the time or energy or resources to do that type of hiring. And that's why LinkedIn is constantly finding new ways to make that particular process easier. They have a feature that helps you write job descriptions. 2.5 small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring for a reason. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
So, I mean, and there isn't a clean answer to this question. I mean, it's whether you frame it as our friend Darius Soriano would say, as a yes and no, or a multiple things can be true at once. It is an interesting question to ask. Like, on the one hand, it does say, like, LeBron, the decline of LeBron, for all the stuff that you talked about in the last segment, Andy, about the challenge of measuring him throughout a season and getting him through it. I mean, the end result is, like, when he plays, he is still one of the elite players in the NBA. And AD, like, really showed out this season. There were some disappointments and all of that, but again, the end result is second team All NBA, just on the outside of the DPOY voting and all that kind of stuff in terms of the final honorees and all that stuff. Had a really good season. If you have those two guys playing at that level, that is the first prerequisite for this team to have a chance to compete for a title. Like, if those things aren't true, then the Lakers have zero shot. And for the time being, you can say the window is still open because those things are true.
I mean, yeah, I don't want to no-and your premise, but there's nothing about them making these all-NBA teams that make me feel any differently about the roster moving forward, because I knew that they were all NBA caliber performances this whole season.
But there's a lot of talk. And the reason I ask it this way is because there are a lot of people who look at this and say, like, the Lakers are cooked because look at what they did. And LeBron and AD were as good. And this is the flip side of the argument. The LeBron and AD, hard to picture them being better, and they couldn't get out of the first round. And, that's the flip side of it. If you look at that and look at it that way, then I think you can make an argument that the window is a lot closer to being closed than it is to open.
I mean, I think a lot of this is going to depend on who are the players around them. It was very evident this year that, the absences of Jared Vanderbilt, especially, we talked about that throughout the entire season. But I think if Gabe Vincent is who they thought he would be, him as well, and then, had Darvin Ham been willing to give Max Christie an honest shot, I think there was a lot missing from this team other than a small pocket of the season defensively that I think hurt the team and made them look a lot throughout the course of this year as a very one-way team. They were lacking a lot in two-way players, but they were also lacking a lot of just mix and match options that they could have at least tried to find more of a balance. And I also, we talked about this a lot during the year, I don't think Darvin went about finding the balance in the most rational of ways. Some of this may be different depending on who is on the roster next year. And, if they bring in that superstar type player, Donovan Mitchell or somebody else that can really help raise the ceiling of this team without hopefully robbing too much of its floor, But the reality is the West is really difficult. And it's become clear that depth really matters. Talent in a lot of different ways matters. Athleticism matters. Size matters. Like, it's difficult to just get through the West based on the power of one or two players. Like, look at the last round, the Mavericks versus the Thunder. You know, for all the attention on Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, PJ Washington, Derek Jones Jr., and Derek Lively are as big of reasons as the two stars that they managed to advance. And that's just flat out fact. So all you know, to quote The Wire, all of the pieces matter. And it'll be interesting to see if the Lakers have all the right pieces. I say this a lot, that if people ask, can you still win a championship with LeBron or AD? The answer is clearly yes. I just don't think it's that simple of a it's not that simple of a framework if you really want to figure out how they're going to do in the playoffs.
The thing about what you're talking about too is, you know, those guys, you know, who the next tier of players. And I think, you know, you can start to sort of objectively look at, you know, is, excuse me, a combination of Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. on a night in, night out basis going to be better than D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves as your third and fourth best players? Probably. You know, I mean, you know, you can argue some of these things, and, like, you know, obviously positions are different and all that kind of stuff, but night to night, especially with the side, yeah, okay. Yeah, I think probably. Especially when paired with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. But, you know, the variance that you get in those players is still pretty extreme. You know, they were really good against the Lakers in round one.
Well, they always are good against the Lakers.
That's true. Teams bring their best, Andy.
No, I mean, Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. are always great against the Lakers. We've seen it now.
Right.
Last year in the playoffs, this year in the regular season, this year in the playoffs. Those two guys are very good against the Lakers.
Yeah. And, you know, they were less good in the next round. Now, Minnesota has a lot to do with that. There's no question. But, you know, in Oklahoma City had a, you know, I think we mentioned this on Wednesday's show, had a great year shooting the three. In the playoffs, first round, they were good. Second round, they were not. Like, you know, so it's really easy to both overreact to what you see in the postseason. And it's also very easy to underreact, to be like, oh, you know what, we're fine. And, you know, figuring out this is why the Westbrook thing, part of why it ticked me off so much, is because if you just like be like, you know, what, let's just play this out. What if Anthony Davis doesn't get hurt in the first round? Like, do we need to do something really dramatic, or do we just cross our fingers and hope we don't get unlucky again like that next year? And for me, I said many times, I think they go to the finals if AD doesn't. I don't know if they win, but I think they get through the West if AD doesn't get hurt. They beat Phoenix and they keep going. Instead, they traded for Russell Westbrook, and we're still paying for that. This year is somewhere in between, where I don't know if they need a wildly dramatic overhaul, but they do need to get better. And how Rob Pelinka figures that out, it ain't easy, that's for sure.
Well, it's not easy because you can make an argument that they need more star power and that they need, if not a better supporting cast for this roster, which means you can make an argument that they need both. And it's going to be very difficult to do both with the limited assets they have, in part because of the Russell Westbrook trade.
Yeah. As much as I am not into the 3-star model anymore that much, I am very open to the Donovan Mitchell thing. I am not open to the Trae Young thing.
I think
I'm more open to the Donovan Mitchell thing.
I think the 3-star model thing, I think, can still work. It's a lot of it has to do with just how the skill sets match and how much money it costs you. You know, you can make Minnesota's roster has a 3-star model. They've got an all-NBA second team guy in Edwards, an all-star in Karl Anthony Towns, and a 4-time defensive player of the year in Gobert. That's a 3-star model. It's working really well. It's expensive as hell, but it's working really. And, they also have a 6th man of the year who's on a reasonable contract. Jaden McDaniels, by the time he's done with that contract, assuming he keeps performing the way he is right now, that's going to seem like a bargain for a 3-and-D guy. Like, Denver for a while has seemed like a 3-star model with, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, and either or both Gordon and Porter. But the skill sets have matched well, and the money's been doable enough. I think a real problem can be, and this is something the Lakers have to avoid, is when you have a 3-star model, and use Phoenix as the example, if they're all expensive, they're all redundant, and they're all on the wrong side of 30, that's where you get in trouble.
Yeah.
Oklahoma City, I think, has a 3-star model. They're just not paid like one yet.
Yeah, although they have
getting there.
They're getting there.
there.
Right. They are getting there. They're not there yet. I don't think those guys are elite in the same. Shea is, but the other guys, Williams and Chet aren't quite.
Well, the point being, though, they are on the verge of having what could be a 3-star model. If Derek Lively II keeps progressing the way he did off a hell of a rookie year, all of a sudden Dallas may be looking like they have a 3-star model. Again, it's about who you have, how much they cost, and the fit. It's not just 3 stars doesn't work. I think that's a lazy way to look at it.
I agree. It's let's open up the mailbag. You teased it at the beginning of the show, and let's open it up for the next segment. We'll do it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get things off our chest, big items, small items. They can build up and really get to you, and it's important to let it out and to have an outlet or someone that's unbiased in your life. Like we do this show, Locked On Lakers, that we hope is a really good escape from real life. You love the Lakers. We love talking about the Lakers, covering the Lakers. There can be an escape from your real life, but I don't care how much purple and gold you bleed. We all have realer things going on in our lives than just your favorite team. And everybody, again, needs someone that you can speak to that's unbiased. And I know for my family and I, speaking to a professional in therapy helped us during a really difficult period. Therapy can be different for everyone. It can be great for everyone. And if you are thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be flexible, suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
Okay, so jumping into the mailbag, this from Socio is back apparently 661. I think I'm getting her handle right. Socio is back. Anyway, what do you guys prefer? D'Lo walks for nothing and opens up the non-tax MLE, or D'Lo opts in, but the Lakers need to find a willing trade partner. Or keep him.
Opts in and he plays basketball for the Lakers.
Right,
there's
that choice.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, opt in for blank is better than walks for nothing. Yes. Walks for nothing is a terrible option.
Walks for nothing is a bad option. Honestly, let's say you could get Russell for 3 and somewhere between 45 and 60, which is 15 to 20 a year. That is very good money for the production that he showed, and probably a bit of an underpay. He could end up, I don't think he'd be too much higher than 20, but
I doubt he's getting more than 20 unless it's for like a 1-year balloon type thing.
He doesn't have the reputation.
He ain't getting more than 20.
Down. So if that's the case, part of what made it hard for the Lakers to trade Russell last year was the 1-and-1 deal that he was on that gave the other team very little certainty into what they were getting. If you had Russell in a 3-year contract that was very reasonable, he actually becomes more tradable in a lot of ways than if he was, than he was on this one-on-one. But I mean, there's no question if the Lakers let him go, they are not going to replace him with a player that's better. Whether
at his position or just period.
Whether you are looking with whatever exceptions they end up having available to them or whatever, like you don't want to use, I realize it's more money if they have a non-taxpayer. And I'm just going to take the word for it. Like I've not broken down the math and all that stuff, but you don't want to take your exceptions, your big exceptions, whether it's the taxpayer or the non-taxpayer, and use them.
If it's the taxpayer, especially if it's the taxpayer, because that one's smaller.
Right. But you don't, my point is you don't want to use those major exceptions, the biggest ones you have, to replace players you're letting go. Because at best, then you're just moving laterally. You're not getting better. You want to add to what you had before. I mean, so yeah.
And this becomes relevant because D'Angelo Russell, Kelly Eco from the Athletic, from a recent piece he had, quote, Orlando is interested in Lakers guard D'Angelo Russell. League sources tell The Athletic Russell has an $18.7 million player option for the 24-25 season. He can opt out if he chooses to test the open market. Orlando has been a team I know I've talked about on a few shows as one that I could really see being interested in D'Lo, because they do not have much in the way of reliable backcourt shooting or scoring. They could use more playmaking from the backcourt. Like Orlando's a really unusually structured team where a lot of their playmaking and scoring is in the front court, and their backcourt led by Jalen Suggs, who's an awesome defender. He made the second team all defense. Like I love Jalen Suggs, and he can occasionally get on a heater, but he's not a really reliable scorer. Cole Anthony now and then gets going, but like they don't really have that sort of player. D'Lo would open up a lot of, say what you want about D'Angelo Russell in the playoffs. The Magic could have used D'Angelo Russell and taken their chances when you saw how much they were often struggling to score. I can see the appeal pretty heavily to the Magic for D'Lo well before like this report came out. I know Michael Scotto from Hoops Hype, maybe like a month or so ago, had earmarked the Magic as a team that's potentially interesting for D'Lo, and they're a team that'll have cap space. Like they will have a lot of cap space, and I don't picture D'Lo being the first guy that they earmarked for that cap space. I imagine Paul George would be ahead of that line. If they thought that there was a prayer of prying away Tyrese Maxey, he'd be ahead of the line. But, I've seen them linked to Klay Thompson, for example. I'd rather have D'Lo, even with the playoff issues acknowledged, than Klay, who I love him, but he has looked increasingly more and more cooked, especially when you start getting to the postseason. D'Lo may have his flaws, but they've got defense they can put around him.
I was about to say they were the third best defensive team in the league this year. So, I mean,
and if if you can't manage to work out like a trade with the Magic and D'Lo walks, the Lakers are in trouble to try to actually get better. They are.
It is one of these things where and again, this is where the sort of reluctance, like this constant, I mean, the Lakers got away from it a little bit with the giving multiple years to Vincent, multiple years to Rui. They've always been in this no long-term thing, keep our options open, you get cap space here and this, whatever, and flexibility and all that stuff. This is where it sort of hurts them because it puts them in this position multiple years in a row where they have to figure out a way. If we do not, okay, fine, we think we can do better than Russell, and it's certainly not, you don't have to, stretch your imagination wildly to be in a place where you feel like the Lakers could be in a better backcourt spot than they are with D'Angelo Russell. But you got to get there. And, when they have hamstrung themselves to a place where it's you either have to use resources to trade, like for a DeJounte Murray, to replace, and then you let D'Lo go. But now you presumably traded Austin.
Oh, see, I think if you make the moves that are likely required to get
that's
DeJounte
right.
Murray,
then you have to keep D'Lo. Right,
you got to keep D'Lo.
Right, because Reeves is probably gone.
Yeah, I think at this point, I know we'll get into this later, but it's come up in the mailbag. If the Lakers are going to go after, if not a third superstar, a third all-star caliber player, I think it's going to be extremely difficult for them to do that without including Austin Reeves.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Like they're in a position where not every scenario, but many scenarios, D'Angelo Russell is actually more valuable to the Lakers than he is any other team in the NBA. Like just because the Lakers don't have the mechanisms to easily replace him. And he, I know he is a lightning rod, but he's pretty good and had a good season. So
here's the dichotomy, because D'Lo gets, I think, justifiably a lot of heat for his history in the playoffs. This year he was okay, had a couple good games, a couple bad games, and I think like one. Certainly last year he was a mixed bag, at times very good, at times Denver series god awful, and he has been very spotty in other places as well. So yeah, his playoff track record suggests you need somebody better than him, and I'm not going to argue that. But the problem is, like this year, if D'Angelo Russell isn't on the team, the Lakers don't likely make the playoffs in order to learn they needed somebody better than D'Angelo Russell in the playoffs. And they don't make it this year without him.
And most teams enter the playoffs knowing that there are guys in their rotation who are going to have to be protected in different ways, who are going to be less effective in certain series, better than others. And like the variance is year to year, like with guys, can be all over the map. And I think even for a couple of years, like guys are terrible in the playoffs, and all of a sudden then they have a good year. And like, it's because they figured something out, or is it because the playoffs get really hard for, like, look at the inefficiency among the really good players. Nikola Jokic had an inefficient series. Nikola Jokic, this stuff impacts good players. This happened all the time in the Kobe era, and we can wrap here and we get back into this, tomorrow maybe. But we have a weird tendency as, fans, as media, whatever, to focus on the shortcomings of the supporting casts, and excuse inefficiency or poor play from the stars, and heap all kinds of scorn on the guys who aren't supposed to be nearly as consistent from night to night. It's a weird thing that we do in the NBA. So anyway, Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to see the show, hang out with over 24,000 subscribers. Again, go to the community section and you can leave mailbag questions, get yourself onto the show. We do look at them, as Andy said, every day. We'll be back tomorrow and into next week as the coaching search continues. A little news about CP3 potentially coming to LA, this time for real. So we'll get into all this stuff tomorrow, and we'll see you then.